With my earth-shattering array mastery, I helped the Lingxiao sect turn the tide of defeat during the Centennial Demon invasion. The Demon Lord personally wrote 3 letters of peace. The first offered to withdraw his troops 3,000 miles. The second offered to return 7 spiritual veins. The third offered 100,000 demon crystals, plus a marriage alliance with a princess of the demon realm. There was only one condition: get me the hell off the battlefield. My master wholeheartedly agreed and kicked me back to the sect that very night. He even wrote a tear-stained secret letter to the sect leader, pleading with him to find me a quiet place and never let me near another battlefield again. The sect leader spent the entire night studying that letter. The next day, in front of the entire sect, he appointed me as the youngest junior martial uncle of the Lingxiao sect. He also placed the destined holy maiden, Yun Fuyao, under my tutelage. Facing the shocked gazes of the elders, the sect leader patted Yun Fuyao's shoulder and said earnestly, "Fuyao, this boy must never fall into the hands of the demonic path." Yun Fuyao looked up at me. I gave her what I thought was a very friendly smile. She remained silent for a moment, then turned around to enter life or death seclusion. I quickly stopped her. "Martial niece, don't be in such a hurry to leave." Yun Fuyao looked at me coldly. "I don't need a martial uncle." I nodded, fully understanding. "Perfect, I don't really want to be one either. My master used to say my mouth would get me sewn shut one day. Unfortunately, I have a stubborn fate. They haven't managed to sew it shut yet." On my first day as the junior martial uncle, the Lingxiao sect held an extremely grand peak greeting ceremony for me. According to tradition, Yun Fuyao was to offer me a cup of spiritual tea. She was the sect's once-in-a-century destined holy maiden, born with luminous spiritual bones and a translucent sword heart. I, on the other hand, was merely an array cultivator who had crawled back from the battlefields of the desolate frontier. I smelled of gunpowder year-round, with 3 holes scorched into the hem of my robes and half a demon horn still wedged in my boot. No matter how one looked at it, I didn't seem like someone who could teach her. Yun Fuyao stood before me, holding a teacup, her face a picture of utter reluctance. I saw it clear as day. So, being very considerate, I took the teacup from her hand and downed it in one gulp. Finding that it didn't quite quench my thirst, I proceeded to drink all 8 cups of spiritual tea prepared for the elders on the table as well. The looks everyone gave me gradually turned to horror. Yun Fuyao finally couldn't help but speak up. "That was the master-disciple tea." I wiped the corner of my mouth. "Don't you not want to do this? Why bother with such hollow formalities?" Yun Fuyao choked. I casually picked up a piece of spirit fruit cake. "You don't want to call me little martial ant, and I don't want to teach you. We're actually quite a match." The sect leader coughed fit to wake the dead. The great elder's beard trembled like a sieve. Yun Fuyao said coldly, "Who is a match for you?" I paused. "Not that kind of match. I meant we're a perfect match in how much we despise each other." After the ceremony ended, the sect leader called me into the hall alone. The old man's expression was complicated. He looked at me as if looking at a blade just pulled from the demon venerable's neck. Useful, but sinister. The sect leader asked me, "Wujiu, your master's letter said that the demon venerable was willing to offer up 100,000 demon crystals just to have you sent back to the sect. What exactly did you do in the borderlands?" I scratched my head. "It was nothing much." The sect leader breathed a sigh of relief. "I just cast a one-heart array over the demon army." The sect leader's hand froze. "The concentric array?" I nodded. "Yes, to make the entire army share the same heart and mind." The sect leader frowned. "Wouldn't that make the demon army more united?" "Originally, yes." I looked at him earnestly. "But I added a truth-telling talisman to the core of the array." The sect leader's expression froze. I continued to explain, so, while their minds were connected, they also couldn't help but speak the truth. The Vanguard general cursed the left protector for being a nepotism hire. The left protector exposed the vanguard general for embezzling military funds on the spot. The third prince of the demons admitted he had slipped laxatives into the first prince's wine. The first prince claimed the third prince wasn't the demon sovereign's biological son. The demon sovereign listened for half the night and almost abdicated on the spot. The sect leader remained silent for a long time. And then? I sighed. Then they started a brawl. The sect leader massaged his temples. I hurried to comfort him. But don't worry, we didn't kill too many of them during the chaos. The sect leader was just about to nod. I added, mainly because we couldn't keep up with the workload. He finally understood why my master had kicked me back here. It wasn't because the frontier didn't need me. It was because the frontier didn't dare keep me. Yun Fuyao did not like me. This was not surprising. She was the destiny saintess of the Lingxiao sect, revered by the masses since childhood. Everyone around her spoke in hushed whispers, afraid to disturb her pure and translucent Tao heart. I was different. I returned from the borderlands. My greatest virtue is that I am hard to kill. My second greatest virtue is my thick skin. My third greatest virtue is that I know my first two virtues are excellent. When Yin Fuyao first came to attend my lecture, she sat upright on a meditation mat, her back ramrod straight and her gaze cold. I placed three things before her. A sword. A spirit stone. A roasted chicken. Looking at the roasted chicken, Yun Fuyao's eyes finally flickered. What is the meaning of this, martial uncle? I pointed at the sword. This is what you are good at. I pointed at the spirit stone. This is the universal currency of the cultivation world. Finally, I pointed at the roasted chicken. This is the meaning of being alive. Yun Fuyao closed her eyes. We cultivators should sever the 7 emotions and renounce the 6 desires to attain the supreme Tao. I tore off a chicken leg. Then go ahead and attain it. I'll eat first. She likely thought I was beyond saving. I also felt it was a pity that someone so young lived her life as if she were in a mourning hall. As we were at a stalemate, a sudden clamor came from outside. A youth in white burst in, followed by several inner sect disciples. The youth was named Qin Yuxiao, the personal disciple of the great elder. His talent was good, and his looks were decent. It was just that when he looked at people, he always liked to tilt his chin up 3 inches, as if doing so made him feel closer to the heavenly Tao. When he saw me, he smiled politely. Little martial uncle has just returned to the sect. I wonder if you've grown accustomed to it. I nodded. I'm quite used to it. The food is good. The smile on Qin Yuxiao's face stiffened. He turned his gaze back to Yun Fuyao. Junior Sister Saintess possesses peerless talent. She should have been personally taught by the sect leader. To have her guided by a formation cultivator from the frontier now, I fear it will lead her cultivation path astray. He put it tactfully. Translated, it meant, are you even worthy? I glanced at Yun Fuyao. Her brow furrowed slightly, but she didn't speak. Qin Yuxiao continued, frontier cultivators spend their years entangled with the demon race, their conduct is crude and reckless, and they are inevitably tainted by turbid qi. As one destined by fate, Junior Sister Saintess should associate less with such people. Oh. He wasn't just insulting me anymore. He was insulting every cultivator who risked their lives on the frontier to block the demonic tides. I put down my chicken leg. Yun Fuyao glanced at me, seemingly afraid I would strike him then and there. She was overthinking it. I am a civilized person. At least within the sect, I generally don't do the dirty work myself. I asked Qin Yuxiao with a beaming smile, Nephew Yuxiao, what did you just say about frontier cultivators? Qin Yuxiao paused, seemingly realizing he had spoken a bit too harshly. But having found fame at a young age and being accustomed to flattery, he couldn't bear to lose face after all. I am only saying that frontier cultivators are too steeped in slaughter and are unfit to teach the saintess. I nodded. Understood. Qin Yuxiao thought I had backed down, and a hint of arrogance returned to his face. The next day, the entire Lingxiao sect knew. Qin Yuxiao, the direct disciple of the Great Elder, believed that frontier cultivators were deeply tainted by turbid qi, unworthy of entering the inner sect, unworthy of teaching disciples, and even more unworthy of receiving the sect's offerings. On the third day, 300 disabled cultivators who had retired from the frontier blocked the base of the Great Elder's peak, asking Qin Yuxiao if their turbid qi was too heavy and an eyesore for the inner sect's prodigy. On the fourth day, the sect's Hall of Affairs received 27 letters of resignation. On the fifth day, the sect leader personally emerged from seclusion, hung Qin Yuxiao from the enlightenment pine in front of the mountain gate, and ordered him to apologize toward the direction of the frontier for 3 days. When Yun Fuyao came to see me, Qin Yuxiao was still swaying in the wind on that tree. Her expression was complicated. "It's not the conflict you've magnified, it's the human heart." I corrected her. "It's principles." Yun Fuyao looked at me. I said unhurriedly, "Some people hurl an insult, thinking it's just a slip of the tongue. But the person they're insulting might have staked their very life on the place those words were meant to protect." Yun Fuyao remained silent for a long time. "So you're using the cultivators of the frontier wilderness to pressure him?" I shook my head. "No." Yun Fuyao looked puzzled. I smiled. "I'm using his own words to pressure him." Yun Fuyao looked at me, and for the first time, she didn't immediately argue back. Up in the tree, Qin Yuxiao had shouted until his voice was hoarse. I waved at him. "Nephew Yuxiao, louder. The wind in the frontier is too strong, I can't hear you." The corner of Yun Fuyao's mouth twitched slightly. I suspected she wanted to laugh. But the burden of being a saintess was too heavy, so she held it back. What a pity. At such a young age, her sense of humor had already been sealed away. I stayed at the Lingxiao sect for half a month and gradually discovered that the entire sect was actually very poor. Not just ordinary poor. It was the kind of poverty where the sect leader would steep the same tea leaves for the 30th time. I asked him, "Isn't our Lingxiao sect one of the 3 great righteous sects in the world?" The sect leader sighed. "Great fame comes with great expenses." I was shocked. "Then why not make money?" The sect leader looked at me as if he were looking at a total wastrel. "How can a cultivator be so reeking of money?" I pointed at the peeling pillars outside the hall. "And is reeking of poverty any better to look at?" It just so happened that at the time, the sect was preparing to renovate the great mountain protecting array. The array was already hundreds of years old, and its inscriptions were severely aged. The last time the aftershocks of a demon tide brushed past Mount Lingxiao, the eastern corner of the array cracked wide open. If it wasn't repaired before another great calamity struck, everyone in the Lingxiao sect would be turned into a pot of hot cultivator soup. But repairing the array cost money. A lot of money. The sect leader gathered the elders of various peaks to discuss the matter. The first elder suggested cutting the disciples' monthly stipends. The second elder suggested postponing the renovation of the alchemy rooms. The third elder suggested selling the sect leader's collection of 300-year-old spiritual wine. The sect leader snapped at the third elder on the spot. I shook my head as I listened. Yun Fuyao sat beside me and asked in a flat voice, "Does Martial Uncle have a solution?" I nodded. "I do." The sect leader's eyes lit up. "Let's hear it." I cleared my throat. "We're not going to repair the mountain protecting array." The entire hall fell silent. The sect leader's gaze grew increasingly dangerous. I continued, "Dismantle the eastern corner of the array completely and leave a gap." The third elder gasped. "You want to let the demonic energy pour in?" I waved my hand. "Not into our place." I pointed to a spot on the map. This place connects to a branch of the Qinglan sect's spirit vein. If we shift the array opening by just 3 inches, then when the demonic tide arrives, the first wave of demonic energy will surge down that branch right to the foot of the Qinglan sect's mountain. Dead silence filled the hall. After a moment, the second elder asked with a trembling voice, "Isn't that a bit too unscrupulous?" I put on an innocent face. Unscrupulous? No one spoke. I explained, the Qinglan sect has occupied 3 of our spirit vein branches. Year after year, they say they're borrowing them, but they never return them. Now that we all belong to the righteous path, when one side is in trouble, everyone should help. They don't want demonic energy flooding their mountain gates, so it's only reasonable for them to help us out with some money for array repairs, right? The sect leader opened his mouth. But the Qinglan sect might not necessarily agree to it. I smiled. Then we'll spread the word. Say that the Lingxiao sect's great guardian array has fallen into disrepair, and there's a risk of demonic energy leaking out. We are willing to shoulder the burden alone, but we simply lack the financial resources. The second elder's eyes lit up. When the time comes, the Qinglan sect will fear being dragged down with us and will definitely provide the money. The third elder added, the smaller sects that depend on the Qinglan sect will also be terrified. The grand elder pondered, we might even be able to force them to return our spirit vein branches. The sect leader remained silent for a long time. He looked at me with a complicated expression. Wujiu, this idea is somewhat lacking in moral integrity? I nodded. The sect leader added, but it is very practical. The next day, news that the Lingxiao sect's great guardian array was on the verge of collapse spread throughout the cultivation world. The Qinglan sect sent someone overnight to deliver 50,000 spirit stones. They included a letter written in earnest terms, stating that the 2 sects were branches of the same tree and that under no circumstances should the demonic energy be allowed to leak and threaten the safety of the righteous path. After reading the letter, the sect leader's eyes filled with tears. The Qinglan sect truly is a fine friend of our righteous path. I nodded. Indeed. Scare them a few more times, and we'll have even more of these fine friends. Yun Fuyao sat nearby, not saying a word. I thought she was going to scold me. Instead, she suddenly asked, what if the Qinglan sect hadn't paid? I thought about it for a moment. Then let's really shift it by 3 inches. From then on, the repair of the mountain protecting array progressed at lightning speed. The Qinglan sect also stopped mentioning that those 3 spiritual pulse branches were merely borrowed. Yun Fuyao began to be willing to listen to my lectures, though she sat very far away from me every time, as if she feared the unscrupulous aura on my body would contaminate her sword heart. But this was already significant progress. One night, she came to find me. I was squatting in the courtyard roasting spirit potatoes. Yun Fuyao stood in the moonlight, her white robes whiter than snow, cold and ethereal like an immortal. I handed her a charred spirit potato. She glanced at it. I won't eat it. I sighed. You children of destiny are truly hard to provide for. She sat down across from me. I want to know the truth about that battle in the frontier wasteland. I was taken aback. The sect leader didn't tell you? Yun Fuyao shook her head. He only said you performed an extraordinary feat. I chuckled. He probably didn't dare say it. Yun Fuyao stared at me. Unable to withstand her gaze, I had no choice but to rake another spirit potato out of the fire. That demonic tide came suddenly. A coalition of 17 demon tribes was bearing down on us. Our frontier garrison had only 30,000 men, while the enemy had at least 200,000. Yun Fuyao's expression tightened slightly. The disparity was that great? I nodded. Moreover, they aren't in a hurry to fight, they want to exhaust our rations and spirit stones. The supply lines to the frontier are long, if this drags on, we will surely lose. Yun Fuyao asked, so you laid down the Heartlink Truth Array? That came later. I took a bite of a spirit potato, hissing from the heat. At the very beginning, I had someone steal the demon race's war drums. Yun Fuyao frowned. War drums? Before the demons set out for war, they must beat the drums to sacrifice to their ancestors. Once the drums sound, morale soars. I said earnestly, I thought they were quite useful things. Yun Fuyao had a vague sense of foreboding. Sure enough. I continued, so, I swapped out the drumheads. Yun Fuyo asked, for what? For the hides of heart-querying beasts. A crack finally appeared in Yun Fuyao's expression. The heart-querying beast was an extremely rare spiritual beast. Once its skin was fashioned into a magical artifact, it could reflect the human heart. If a cultivator's state of mind was unstable, hearing the drumbeat would cause them to recall the things they felt most guilty about. Yun Fuyo fell silent. I thoughtfully continued my explanation. The night the demons beat the drums, 200,000 soldiers were boiling with fervor while simultaneously reliving their past misdeeds. Someone remembered stealing military rations. Someone remembered harming a comrade. Someone remembered that the cultivation technique they practiced had been snatched from their senior brother. The most brilliant part was the demon high priest. He remembered that 300 years ago, he had tampered with the demon venerable's destiny chart. Yun Fuyo said slowly, so the demon race fell into internal strife? Not immediately. I waved my hand. They just couldn't stand the sight of each other. Later, I supplemented it with a heart-linked truth array. I marveled, that scene was truly a sight to behold. The general cursed the priest. The priest cursed the prince. The prince cursed the demon lord. In a fit of rage, the demon lord said, if your ancestors weren't distantly related to mine, you useless trash would have been refined into demonic pills long ago. Yun Fuyo closed her eyes. I patted my knees. Then the 17-tribe allied army split into 19 factions on the spot. Yun Fuyo couldn't help but ask, why 19 factions? I wore an expression of deep sorrow. Because 2 of the tribes split among themselves. Yun Fuyo finally smiled. It was very faint. Like snow falling on the edge of a sword. I was stunned for a moment. She immediately pulled back her smile, returning to her cold demeanor. I said cheerfully, Martial niece, you look quite pretty when you smile. Yun Fuyo lowered her eyes. Martial uncle, please continue talking about the war. I nodded. Later, we took advantage of the chaos to counterattack and captured the 3rd prince of the demon race. Yun Fuyo asked, and so the demon lord sued for peace? No. I shook my head. The demon lord was quite stubborn at first. Yun Fuyo looked puzzled. I cleared my throat. Until I drafted a document for the 3rd prince to acknowledge his ancestry and return to his roots. The document stated that the 3rd prince was actually a long-lost 97th generation descendant of the Wang family from the borderlands. Since he had entered our borderlands household registry, he had to be renamed Wang Taizhu. The spiritual sweet potato in Yun Fuyao's hand dropped. I'm quite disappointed. I was even planning to hold an induction ceremony for him and have the demon lord sit at the head table. Yun Fuyo looked at me as if she were looking at a demonic calamity. The demon lord agreed to the peace treaty? I nodded. He agreed overnight. In his letter, he said withdrawing his troops is fine, reparations are fine, and returning the spiritual veins is fine too. His only demand was for me to stay far away from his son. Yun Fuyo remained silent for a long time. Your master was right to send you back. I sighed. You people simply don't know how to appreciate anything. Every 3 years, the Lingxiao sect holds the great competition of the 9 peaks. Normally, the Saintess Yun Fuyo would be the undisputed number 1 among her peers. But something went wrong during this competition. The mystic jade lotus heart that Yun Fuyo had obtained during the secret realm trial had disappeared. The mystic jade lotus heart was the most important spiritual item of this competition. Whoever possessed it would be the rightful champion. Yet, as soon as Yun Fuyo stepped out of the secret realm, the lotus heart was gone. Before the eyes of everyone, her storage ring was empty. Qin Yuxiao, who had only recently been let down from the Pine of Enlightenment, saw his chance and immediately jumped forward. Junior Sister Saintess, the mystic jade lotus heart is a matter of the sect's honor. If you accidentally lost it, just say so. Why try to hide it? Yun Fuyao's face turned slightly pale. She was not good at arguing, and even worse at defending herself when being slandered. I shook my head as I watched. This child was good with a sword, but her tongue was far too slow. Someone beside Qin Yuxiao chimed in, indeed. If the lotus heart is missing, I'm afraid your position as champion cannot count. Another person whispered, could it be that the saintess never obtained the lotus heart in the first place? Yun Fuyo tightened her grip on her sword hilt. I walked over and pressed my hand down on hers. Don't be in a hurry. When Qin Yuxiao saw me, a hint of wariness flashed across his face. But with so many eyes on us, he was certain I wouldn't dare act out. He was wrong. What I excelled at most was acting out right in front of everyone. I asked the deacon in charge of the secret realm, besides our own disciples, who else is in the secret realm? The deacon replied, since the Nine Peaks Great Competition is open to external observers, the Azure Mist sect and the Myriad Beast Valley have each sent a few disciples inside to spar. I nodded. Then let's say the Myriad Beast Valley stole the mystic jade lotus core. The deacon's hand trembled. Ha! Qin Yuxiao was overjoyed. Little martial uncle, you're planning to frame an outside sect? I looked at him. Keep your voice down. Don't let the Myriad Beast Valley hear you. Yun Fuyao couldn't help but whisper, there is no evidence. I sighed. Niece, you're still too young. It's because there is no evidence that we need them to help us find it. She was stunned. I told the deacon, spread the word. Say that the mystic jade lotus core has been stolen and the Myriad Beast Valley is the prime suspect. Since they are the only ones who brought spirit beasts into the secret realm, and spirit beasts are best at finding treasures. The deacon's face turned pale. The Myriad Beast Valley won't admit to it. Nonsense, of course they won't. I explained patiently, if they don't admit to it, they will do everything in their power to prove they didn't steal it. How do they prove it? By finding the real thief. The noses of their spirit beasts are more effective than our formations. A whole day of our searching wouldn't be as good as a single incense stick's worth of theirs. Everyone was dumbfounded. Qin Yuxiao asked with a trembling voice, that actually works? I said with a beaming smile, watch and learn. Half an hour later, the Myriad Beast Valley indeed exploded. Their elder rushed into the main hall holding 3 treasure-hunting rats, furiously accusing the High Firmament sect of blatant slander. The sect leader looked grief-stricken, claiming he had no such intention and that it was merely a misunderstanding between disciples. To prove his innocence, the elder of the Valley of Myriad Beasts released his treasure-hunting mice on the spot. The 3 mice circled the hall 3 times before simultaneously pouncing on Qin Yuxiao. Qin Yuxiao's face turned pale. A shattered shell of a mystic jade lotus core fell from his storage bag. The entire hall erupted in an uproar. Qin Yuxiao slumped to the ground. As it turned out, he had bribed an outer disciple in the secret realm to steal the lotus core amidst the chaos, then refined it in an attempt to destroy the evidence. But he hadn't expected that the shell of the mystic jade lotus core carried a special jade marrow fragrance. Humans couldn't smell it. But treasure-hunting mice could. The Grand Elder nearly fainted on the spot. As Qin Yuxiao was being hauled away, the look of grief and indignation he gave me made it seem like I had destroyed his entire family. I felt very wronged. It was clearly the Valley of Myriad Beasts who found him out. What did it have to do with me? Yun Fuyao stood beside me and asked softly, did Martial Uncle suspect Qin Yuxiao from the start? I shook my head. I wasn't sure. Then how did you dare? I looked in the direction Qin Yuxiao was being dragged. The one who jumps the highest is the one with the guiltiest conscience. Yun Fuyao fell silent for a moment. And if it wasn't him? I thought for a moment. Then the Valley of Myriad Beasts would still have found the real thief. Yun Fuyao looked at me. I was perfectly composed. Either way, they're the ones being scolded, they're the ones solving the case, and we're the ones who benefit. Yun Fuyao closed her eyes. Martial Uncle. You really are a bit unscrupulous. I felt immensely gratified. Thank you for the compliment. After the great competition of the 9 Peaks, Yun Fuyao's attitude toward me had improved significantly. Specifically, she used to take a long detour whenever she saw me. Now, she only detours halfway. I am very satisfied. As a cultivator, one cannot be too greedy. However, the peaceful days did not last long. Luo Mingchuan, the young pavilion master of the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion, arrived. Dressed in a moonwhite robe with a jade flute hanging from his waist, his features were gentle and refined. The moment he entered the Lingxiao sect, he drew the secret gazes of many female disciples. I heard that he and Yun Fuyo had known each other since they were young. I heard even more, that the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion had once intended to form a marriage alliance with the Lingxiao sect. I immediately perked up. Martial niece, is your fiancé here? Yun Fuyo was wiping her sword, her hand paused. He is not. I leaned in. Then he almost became your fiancé? Yun Fuyo looked at me coldly. Is martial uncle very free? I nodded. Extremely free. Yun Fuyo turned and left. I chased after her. Does he like you? Yun Fuyao's pace quickened. Martial uncle. If you ask again, I will ask the sect leader to revoke your stipend. I sucked in a breath of cold air. What a vicious woman. Luo Mingchuan had come for the Tablet of Destiny. The Heavenly Fate Tablet is one of the foundational treasures of the Lingxiao sect. Legend says it can sense the tribulations of those chosen by fate. Yun Fuyao's cultivation was recently approaching the golden core stage, yet cracks suddenly appeared upon the Heavenly Fate Tablet. Luo Mingchuan said this was a sign of the backlash of fate. If not resolved in time, Yun Fuyo would surely suffer heart-incinerating heavenly lightning on the day of her breakthrough. The sect leader's expression grew grave upon hearing this. The elders also grew worried one after another. Luo Mingchuan sighed. The Heavenly Mystery Pavilion has a method that can share the burden of fate's backlash for the saintess. However, this method requires someone with a similar destiny to form a life-binding pact with her. I sat in the corner munching on a spirit fruit. Hearing this, I looked up. A life-binding pact? Luo Mingchuan said gently, correct. If the pact is successful, I can bear 30% of the backlash for Fuyao. At these words, many in the hall were moved. Yun Fuyo frowned. The price? Luo Mingchuan's gaze darkened slightly. From then on, our destinies will be linked, sharing both honor and ruin. I was amused. Wasn't this just tethering someone's fate under the guise of saving them? The sect leader was still hesitating. Luo Mingchuan added, Fuyao and I have known each other since childhood, I would never harm her. He spoke with deep affection. Yun Fuyo, however, looked at me. I finished chewing my spirit fruit and clapped my hands. The young pavilion master is truly noble. Luo Mingchuan smiled slightly. Thank you for the praise, little martial uncle. I smiled too. Since you're so noble, why not form a few more? Luo Mingchuan was stunned. What? Yun Fuyo is the destiny saintess, I said earnestly. The backlash of destiny is no trivial matter. If you are the only one bearing 30% of it, I'm afraid you won't be able to hold up. Let's call everyone from the Heaven's Secret Pavilion here. The pavilion master can take 30%. The young pavilion master can take 30%. The various elders can take 0.5% each. The disciples shouldn't just stand around either. Everyone can take a little piece. This way, not only will Fuyao be fine, but your Heaven's Secret Pavilion will also earn a place in the history books. The hall became so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. Luo Mingchuan's smile froze. This method cannot be shared among multiple people. I acted enlightened. Oh, so only you alone can bind your fate to hers? Luo Mingchuan's expression shifted slightly. Little martial uncle Xia, what do you mean by that? I blinked. Nothing much. I just find the Heaven's Secret Pavilion's methods quite miraculous. When others shield her from a tribulation, it's called risking their lives to help. When you shield her, it's called linking fates. It doesn't sound like you're saving her, it sounds like you're taking advantage of her. Luo Mingchuan finally lost his smile. Yun Fuyao lowered her gaze, masking the coldness in her eyes. The sect leader was no fool, he had simply been blinded by worry. The moment I spoke, he immediately realized the truth. The Heaven's Secret Pavilion's so-called shared fate pact likely didn't just share the backlash, it also siphoned off Yun Fuyao's destiny and luck. Luo Mingchuan was escorted out of the hall. Before leaving, his gaze toward Yun Fuyao remained tender. Fuyao, you would rather believe an array cultivator returned from the desolate frontier than believe me? Yun Fuyao didn't look at him. My martial uncle might be shameless, but at least he doesn't put on an act. That doesn't sound like a compliment. After Luo Mingchuan left, the sect leader asked me, Wujio, how should we resolve the backlash of Fuyao's destiny? I thought about it for a moment. Simple. The sect leader's eyes lit up. How? Smash the destiny tablet. I explained, the tablet cracked, so you all assume something is going to happen to her. Is it possible the tablet itself is just falling apart from years of neglect? The sect leader looked pained. That is our sect's supreme treasure. I asked, when was the last time it was actually accurate? The sect leader fell silent. The second elder whispered, 300 years ago, it predicted the ancestor would ascend. I asked, did the ancestor ascend? The second elder's voice grew even quieter. He died in meditation. I shrugged. See? It's an old fraud. In the end, the destiny tablet wasn't smashed. The sect leader couldn't bear to do it. However, he agreed to let me dismantle it for an inspection. As it turned out, the formation patterns at the base of the tablet had long been tampered with. The cracks weren't a backlash of destiny, someone had intentionally triggered the secret techniques of the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion, hoping to scare the Lingxiao sect into agreeing to the soul-binding contract. The sect leader was livid and severed all ties with the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion on the spot. Yun Fuyao stood before the destiny tablet, silent for a long time. I asked her, are you sad? She shook her head. I just feel like I didn't see people for who they were before. I comforted her. It's fine. In this life, who hasn't known a few scumbags? Yun Fuyao glanced at me. You knew someone like that too, martial uncle? I nodded earnestly. I did. She asked, and then? I smiled. The grass on their grave is already 10 feet high. She turned and left. I suspected she was cursing my lack of conscience in her heart again. But she had no proof. Not long after the incident with Luo Mingchuan, Yun Fuyao broke through her cultivation realm. The Golden Core lightning tribulation arrived with extreme ferocity. Dark clouds weighed heavily over Mount Lingxiao, and thunder rolled as if the heavens had split open. Yun Fuyao stood on the tribulation platform, her white robes fluttering and her sword intent piercing the sky. The disciples of the entire sect watched from a distance. The sect leader was so nervous that his palms were sweating. I, however, wasn't nervous. I was quite busy. Busy setting up a stall around the tribulation platform. Spectator spots for the Golden Core lightning tribulation. Front row, 10 high-grade spirit stones, back row, 5. Add 3 spirit stones for a lightning protection talisman. Add 5 spirit stones to experience the same lightning sound marrow cleansing. Honest prices for all, no credit allowed. The second elder's beard bristled with rage. Xie Wujio. The saintess is undergoing her tribulation, and you're actually here profiteering. I said solemnly, second elder, you shouldn't put it that way. A lightning tribulation is a rare sight. After the disciples observe it, they will surely gain something. I am merely providing them with an orderly, safe, and comfortable learning environment. The second elder pointed at the small stove roasting spiritual sweet potatoes nearby. Then what about this? I said, value-added services. Yun Fuyao glanced at me from the stage. I wasn't sure if it was my imagination, but she seemed to smile. When the lightning tribulation struck, the entire Lingxiao mountain shook. The first bolt, Yun Fuyao sliced apart with a single stroke of her sword. The second bolt, she met head-on with her sword intent. As the third bolt fell, several dark shadows suddenly appeared on the horizon. Demons! They were actually launching a sneak attack while Yun Fuyao was undergoing her tribulation. The sect leader's expression changed drastically. The elders rose to their feet one after another. However, a lightning domain had already formed around the tribulation platform. Outsiders could not approach recklessly. Otherwise, the heavenly tribulation would treat any intruder as an interference and bring down an even more powerful divine punishment. The demons had clearly calculated this. They did not approach Yun Fuyao, but instead set up a demon-luring array on the periphery, attempting to disturb her state of mind. Yun Fuyao's brows furrowed slightly. The fourth bolt was already gathering within the clouds. The demon leader laughed wildly. So what if you're the Saintess of Destiny? Today, I shall shatter your Tao heart. I sighed. Why is there always someone who likes to set up arrays in front of me? The disciple beside me asked nervously, "Little martial uncle, what should we do?" I looked at those demons and thought about it seriously. Sign them up. The disciple was stunned. Sign them up for what? The Tribulation Protector experience. I raised my hand and sent out 36 formation flags. Back when I was setting up my stall, I had already laid a circle of arrays around the tribulation platform. Nominally, it was to protect the disciples observing the ceremony. Actually, it was also to prevent anyone from causing trouble. The moment the array was activated, golden runes blazed beneath the feet of all the demons. The demonic chi on their bodies was drawn by the formation lines, instantly linking them to the thunderclouds. The lead demon's expression shifted drastically. What kind of array is this? I replied with a beaming smile, the Merit Guardian Array. Congratulations to you all for voluntarily serving as Yun Fuyao's guardians during her tribulation. The heavenly Tao will remember your sacrifice. No sooner had the words left my mouth than the fifth bolt of lightning split into a dozen smaller streaks, accurately striking those demons. Wails of agony rose and fell. The disciples watched, dumbfounded. I even provided a helpful commentary from the side. Do you see, everyone? This is what happens when you interfere with another's tribulation. The cultivation world is a dangerous place. Do not go looking for excitement blindly. Of course, those who purchase lightning-warding talismans are the exception. The sect leader's gaze toward me had already turned numb. The demons scattered in a panic as they were struck by lightning, but the further they ran, the stronger the array's pull became. In the end, the lightning tribulation chased them from the eastern peaks to the western peaks. Yun Fuyao, meanwhile, was left in peace. With a single sword strike, she shattered the final bolt of heavenly lightning, successfully forming her golden core. As the clouds dispersed, spiritual rain fell across the sky. She stood upon the tribulation platform, golden light flowing around her body, her features as clear and pure as fresh snow after a storm. I waved my hand at her. Martial niece, congratulations. She stepped down from the platform, one pace at a time. The spiritual rain caught in her hair. She looked at me and suddenly asked, were those demons truly voluntary guardians? I fell silent for a moment. In the matters of cultivators, how can it be called coercion? Yun Fuyao chuckled softly. This time, she couldn't hold it back. As I watched her smile, I suddenly felt that although the food on Mount Lingxiao wasn't as savory as the roasted meat of the borderlands, the scenery was indeed quite good. After Yun Fuyao reached the golden core stage, her reputation grew even more prominent. But trouble followed in its wake. The Tianji Pavilion and the Qinglan sect joined forces and secretly submitted a petition to the Alliance of Righteousness. They claimed that my actions were wicked and my methods bordered on demonic, making me unfit to serve as the junior martial uncle of the Lingxiao sect. Furthermore, they claimed I was even less fit to mentor the Saintess of Destiny. The Alliance of Righteousness sent 3 inspectors to the Lingxiao sect. The leader was an elderly cultivator surnamed Zhou. His face was filled with righteousness, and every word he spoke sounded as if it were chiseled from a stone of commandments. The first thing he said upon seeing me was, "Xia Wujio, do you plead guilty?" I was busy shelling melon seeds. "I do." Inspector Joe was stunned. He likely hadn't expected me to admit it so readily. "And what is your crime?" I said. "I shouldn't be eating melon seeds during a sect meeting." Inspector Joe roared in anger, "That is not what I am talking about." I had a moment of realization. In that case, I don't know. Inspector Joe's face turned red with fury. He proceeded to list my 7 great sins. First, using evil arrays during the Battle of the Borderlands. Second, inciting conflict between the Lingxiao sect and the Qinglan sect. Third, framing the Valley of Myriad Beasts. Fourth, humiliating the Tianji Pavilion. Fifth, using the Saintess's tribulation to amass wealth. Sixth, using the lightning tribulation to slaughter the demon race, an act that violated the harmony of heaven. Seventh, leading the Saintess of Destiny astray. After listening, I asked sincerely, "I can understand the first 6, but what evidence do you have for the 7th? Inspector Joe sneered. The Saintess, Yun Fuyao, used to be aloof and upright, her heart set solely on the Tao. Ever since she came under your tutelage, her actions have become increasingly unconventional. I heard that a few days ago, she even bought candied hawthorns at the foot of the mountain." I was shocked. Is buying candied hawthorns against the law now? Inspector Joe said solemnly, "The Saintess of Heaven's mandate should renounce all desires of the palate." Before I could speak, Yun Fuyao walked into the hall. Today, she wore a pale green dress with a sword hanging at her waist, her expression calm. Upon seeing her, Inspector Joe's tone softened. "Saintess, I have come today for your sake. Xia Wujio is a man of wicked character. If you continue to be influenced by him, I fear you will go astray." Yun Fuyao glanced at me. I offered her a handful of melon seeds. She didn't take them. Inspector Joe looked very satisfied. The next moment, Yun Fuyao spoke in a cool voice, "I do not believe my martial uncle is of wicked character." Inspector Joe frowned. "The Saintess is young, you are being deceived without even realizing it." Yun Fuyao said, "In the Battle of the Frontier, if not for martial uncle, the demonic tide would not have receded. The Qinglan sect occupied our spiritual vein, martial uncle merely made them return it." Regarding the incident at the Valley of 10,000 Beasts, the true culprit was indeed Qin Yuxiao. The Pavilion of Heavenly Secrets sought to seize my destiny, martial uncle saved me. On the day of my tribulation, when the demons launched a sneak attack, martial uncle protected me. With every sentence she spoke, Inspector Joe's face grew a shade darker. Finally, she looked up slightly. "As for the candied hawthorns, I wanted to eat them myself." Silence filled the hall. I was so moved I nearly stood up to applaud. It hasn't been easy. The martial niece I've raised for so long has finally learned how to talk back. Inspector Joe was so incensed that he laughed. "Good, very good. You truly have been corrupted." I stood up. "Inspector Joe, you should watch your words. You claim my methods border on the demonic, yet it is demons I slay, and the righteous path I protect." Inspector Joe said coldly, "Those of the righteous path should act with honor and integrity." I nodded. "That makes sense." Then, I took out a memory stone. "In that case, let us see, in an open and upright manner, who exactly accepted 30,000 spirit stones from the Qinglan sect to come to the Lingxiao sect and cause trouble for me." Inspector Joe's expression changed instantly. The memory stone lit up. In the projection, an elder of the Qinglan sect was conversing with Inspector Joe in a secret chamber. 3 chests of spirit stones sat upon the table. Inspector Joe spoke with an air of self-righteousness. "Xia Wujio is indeed a threat to the peace of the righteous path. I am willing to eliminate this hidden danger for the sake of all living beings." The Qinglan sect elder nodded. "Once the matter is settled, there will be another generous gift." The projection ended. A deathly silence fell over the hall. Inspector Joe turned as white as a sheet. I shook my head inside. Acting with honor and integrity. The righteous path, indeed. The sect leader took a slow sip of tea. The 3 inspectors were escorted out of the Lingxiao sect. To be precise, 2 walked out, and 1 was dragged out. Yun Fuyao stood beside me and suddenly asked, "When did you set up the recording?" "Before they even arrived at the mountain," I replied. She looked at me. I explained, "The Qinglan sect has been too quiet lately. So quiet that it felt like they were up to no good." Yun Fuyao asked, "And if they hadn't accepted the spirit stones?" I pondered for a moment. Then I would have edited together something else. Yun Fuyao's gaze sharpened. "Just kidding," I said quickly. She looked at me quietly. I felt a pang of guilt under her gaze. "I'll only cut a little bit, at most." Yun Fuyao turned and left. I chased after her. "Martial niece, listen to my explanation." "I won't." "Do you still want the candied haws?" She paused slightly. "Hawthorn flavor." I smiled. "Coming right up." I thought that after suffering such a huge loss, the Righteous Alliance would settle down for a while. To my surprise, the real trouble arrived even faster. Luo Mingchuan had returned. This time, he didn't come alone. He brought the master of the Heavenly Mystery Pavilion, the sect leader of the Qinglan sect, and an order of condemnation from the 36 sects of the Righteous Alliance. The charges were grave. They claimed that Yun Fuyao's heavenly destiny had fluctuated, and they feared she would become a calamitous star of a chaotic world. As for me, Xie Wujiu, I was accused of using an evil array to obscure the secrets of heaven, intending to use the saintess's destiny to subvert the righteous path. Upon hearing this, the sect leader was so enraged that he smashed his teacup on the spot. Absurd! Luo Mingchuan stood in the hall with a look of pity. "Sect leader, we do not wish to harm Fuya. We only wish to invite her to the Heavenly Mystery Pavilion to cultivate in seclusion for 100 years. Once the omen of the calamitous star has faded, she may return to her sect." Sitting nearby, I almost laughed out loud. Cultivate in seclusion for 100 years? What a pretty way to put it. Yun Fuyao is only 18 years old. In 100 years, her heavenly destiny and fortune would have long been squeezed dry by them. The sect leader naturally refused. The sect master of the Qinglan sect said coldly, "If the Lingxiao sect insists on shielding her, you will be making an enemy of the righteous path." Outside the main hall, cultivators from 36 sects had already surrounded Lingxiao Mountain. Every disciple of the Lingxiao sect gripped their sword. The atmosphere was at a breaking point. Yun Fuyao stood by my side and whispered, "Martial uncle, this all started because of me." I looked at her. Her expression was calm, yet she had already made up her mind. If I go with them, perhaps the sect can be spared from a war. I reached out and flicked her forehead. She froze. I said, "You're still young, stop always thinking about sacrificing yourself." She pursed her lips. "But if a war starts, many people will die." I nodded. "That is why there will be no war." Yun Fuyao was stunned. I stood up and walked out of the hall. In front of the mountain gate, the cultivators of the 36 sects formed a dense, dark mass. I stood on high ground and cleared my throat. "You have all come from afar for the matter of the Calamity Star, have you not?" The sect master of the Qinglan sect sneered. "Xie Wujiu, what else do you have to say?" I sighed. Now that things have come to this, I will hide it no longer. The entire area fell silent. Luo Mingchuan stared at me, a hint of triumph flashing in his eyes. He likely thought I was about to confess to something. I raised my hand and gave a wave. A massive screen of light appeared in mid-air. Within the screen was a pitch-black stone. The stone looked quite ordinary. Ugly, even. I declared somberly, "The true calamitous star of chaos is not Yun Fuya." The crowd erupted in an uproar. I pointed at the stone within the light screen. "It is this." A deathly silence fell over the hall. The sect leader of the Qinglan sect barked in fury, "Are you playing us?" I maintained a serious expression. "Mind your words, sect leader. I obtained this stone on the frontier battlefield. When the demon venerable saw it back then, he coughed up 3 pints of blood on the spot." This happened to be the truth. However, it wasn't the stone that had frightened the demon venerable into spitting blood. He had spat it out of sheer rage when he heard me say I wanted to rename his son Wang Taizhu. But that wasn't important. What mattered was that I spoke with absolute conviction. I continued, "It can shroud heavenly secrets, disrupt the threads of fate, and devour providence. The so-called omen of the calamitous star attributed to Yun Fuyao was caused by this very stone." The master of the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion frowned. "Absurd! How could a mere stone possess such power?" I looked at him. "You don't believe me, Pavilion Master?" He replied coldly, "Of course not." I nodded. "Then I invite the Pavilion Master to use the art of heavenly secrets to deduce this stone's origins." With a cold huff, the Pavilion Master began to form hand seals on the spot. A moment later, his expression shifted. Because he couldn't deduce a single thing. It wasn't because the stone was extraordinary. It was because I had placed 18 layers of heaven-shrouding arrays upon it. It would be strange if he could deduce anything at all. The Pavilion Master's expression turned grave. The sect master of the Qinglan sect began to hesitate as well. Luo Mingchuan stared at me fixedly. He knew I was talking nonsense, but he had no evidence. I said with an expression of profound grief, I had intended to suppress this stone at Mount Lingxiao forever to prevent it from plaguing the world. I did not expect you all to care so much for the common people that you would take the initiative to come here today. Since that is the case, my Lingxiao sect is willing to part with what we love and hand this stone over to the Alliance of Righteous Paths for collective custody. However, this stone is perilous. Whoever takes it first must bear the backlash of the demon star. The scene fell silent instantly. The cultivators of the 36 sects, who had been filled with righteous indignation just a moment ago, all took half a step back. I looked toward the sect master of the Qinglan sect. "Sect master, you were the most righteous just now. Why doesn't the Qinglan sect take custody first?" The Qinglan sect master's face turned ashen. "This matter still requires further discussion." I then looked at the Pavilion Master of the Tianji Pavilion. "The Pavilion Master is well versed in heavenly mysteries, you are the most suited to suppress the demon star." The Pavilion Master of the Tianji Pavilion remained silent. I sighed. "Weren't you all here for the sake of the common people?" No one spoke. Yun Fuyao stood behind me, her shoulders trembling slightly. I knew she wasn't afraid, she was stifling a laugh. In the end, the Alliance of Righteous Paths deliberated for 3 whole hours. Not a single sect was willing to be the first to take the Demon Star Stone. But they couldn't bring themselves to admit they were afraid, so they unanimously decided that the stone would temporarily remain suppressed by the Lingxiao sect. As for the matter of Yun Fuyao being the Demon Star, it would require further consideration. They had arrived for their interrogation with aggressive momentum, but they left in a state of pathetic disgrace. I even thoughtfully made 36 rubbings of the Demon Star Stone and gave 1 to each sect to take back and study. The sect leader of the Qinglan sect left with a face turned green with fury. Yun Fuyao finally couldn't help but ask me, "What exactly was that stone?" I replied, "A wedge for a table leg." She fell silent. I added, "It's been wedging the table for 3 years, it's very steady." Yun Fuyao lowered her head and let out a laugh. She laughed for a long time this time. Watching her, I suddenly felt that the arrival of the 36 sex cultivators wasn't such a bad thing after all. At least it cheered her up. After the Orthodox Alliance retreated, Luo Mingchuan did not go far. He waited outside Lingxiao Mountain for 3 days. On the night of the 3rd day, he secretly slipped into Fuyao Peak. Unfortunately for him, he didn't know that I had laid a formation outside Fuyao Peak. It wasn't a killing formation. It was a debt collector formation. As long as someone entered with ill intent, the formation would manifest the creditor who would most likely cause them to crumble, based on the desires of their heart. The moment Luo Mingchuan stepped through the mountain gate, he saw 300 Yun Fuyos. Every single one of them was looking at him expressionlessly. Every single one of them reached out a hand. Return my destiny to me. Luo Mingchuan's Dao heart wavered on the spot. By the time Yun Fuyao and I arrived, he was hugging a tree and repenting. I only wanted to borrow a bit of your heavenly luck. I didn't mean to harm you. I really just wanted to ascend. Yun Fuyao stood in the night, her expression as cold as frost. It turned out the Tianji Pavilion had long possessed a secret technique that could use the luck of those favored by heaven to defy the heavens and change one's destiny. Luo Mingchuan had never approached her out of childhood friendship. He wanted her destiny. And he wanted her. If Yun Fuyao were willing to form a life-sharing bond, it would naturally be for the best. If not, they would force her to become the Calamity Star, giving the Tianji Pavilion a righteous pretext to take her away. After hearing this, Yun Fuyao asked only one question. Did you ever truly consider me a friend? Luo Mingchuan's face turned deathly pale. He could not answer. Standing to the side, I suddenly felt a flicker of irritation. It wasn't because Luo Mingchuan was despicable. I had seen plenty of despicable people. It was because the light in Yun Fuyao's eyes dimmed for a moment. Someone like her, with a pure sword heart, trusted very few people. And yet, someone had chosen to use that trust as a blade. I walked over and patted Luo Mingchuan on the shoulder. He looked at me in terror. What are you going to do? I smiled very kindly. Don't be afraid. I won't kill you. Luo Mingchuan breathed a sigh of relief. Killing you would be too easy, I continued. His face paled once more. The next day, the Tianji Pavilion received a letter. It stated that Luo Mingchuan had attained enlightenment at the Lingxiao sect and had resolved to sever his worldly ties, entering the borderlands for 30 years of bitter cultivation to atone for his past sins. The master of the Tianji Pavilion was incensed and came in person to demand his son. When I brought Luo Mingchuan out, he was dressed in coarse burlap, carrying a basket of spirit stone or, his gaze hollow. The pavilion master roared, "What have you done to my son?" I looked perfectly innocent. I helped him find enlightenment. Luo Mingchuan's voice trembled. Father, I want to go to the borderlands. The pavilion master stared in disbelief. I asked Luo Mingchuan in a gentle voice, "And why do you want to go to the borderlands?" Luo Mingchuan's eyes welled with tears. Because labor is glorious. Actually, it was nothing much. I merely had him experience being chased for debts by 300 Yun Fuyos 100 times over within the debt-collecting array. Then, I made him watch once more how 30,000 cultivators at the frontier fought to the death against the demonic tide. Finally, I let him personally experience the sensation of being pursued and hacked at by the demon race. People, you see. They only become sensible after they've tasted enough bitterness. On the day Luo Mingchuan was sent to the frontier, Yun Fuyao came to find me. She asked, "Martial uncle, why didn't you kill him?" I leaned against a tree, basking in the sun. Because he's more useful alive than dead. Yun Fuyao was puzzled. I explained, the Heavenly Mystery Pavilion won't easily abandon their young pavilion master. As long as he is at the frontier, the pavilion will have to provide a steady stream of funds and resources to ensure he stays alive. The frontier lacks resources. Luo Mingchuan lacks a lesson. The two happen to complement each other perfectly. Yun Fuyao looked at me quietly for a moment. Martial uncle. Sometimes, you don't seem like a cultivator. I asked, then what do I seem like? She thought for a bit. Like a debt collector. I couldn't agree more. The heavenly Tao owes me, sooner or later, I'll have to collect. She asked, what does the heavenly Tao owe you? I stretched lazily. It owes me a life of leisure. Yun Fuyao sat down beside me. Then, has martial uncle collected it yet? I glanced at her. Sunlight fell upon her features, making her seem less untouchable and more grounded in the mortal world. I suddenly felt that a peaceful life didn't necessarily have to be spent alone. Soon. She didn't understand. I didn't explain, either. Some things shouldn't be said too early. Saying them too soon would make me seem frivolous. Though, I wasn't particularly steady to begin with. 5 years later, the demons launched another massive invasion. This time, the demon sovereign led the army personally. When the urgent report from the borderlands reached the Lingxiao sect, I was fishing in the back mountains. To be more precise, I had thrown my hook into the water and then used an array to force the fish to line up and bite it. Yun Fuyao stood beside me, her expression hard to describe. "Martial uncle, that's not how you fish." I looked at the dozen or so spiritual fish flopping in the basket. "But I catch more this way." She had no rebuttal. When the report arrived, the sect leader's expression was grave. The demon sovereign was well prepared this time. He had not only reorganized the 17 tribes of the demon race but also summoned the Black-Bone Demon Lord, who had been slumbering in the demon realm for 1,000 years. The border guards were suffering defeat after defeat. The alliance of righteous sects began bickering once more. Some advocated for reinforcements, while others argued for a wait-and-see approach. Some believed the Lingxiao sect should send troops first, while others believed the Pavilion of Heavenly Secrets understood the mandate of heaven better. While they argued back and forth, the demons had nearly reached the third city of the borderlands. The sect leader asked me, "Wujiao, what do you think?" I said, "Watching it while sitting makes me angry, and watching it while standing is no different." "Be serious," the sect leader said. I put away my fishing rod. "Fight." The sect leader was taken aback. I said calmly, "This time, we can't just rely on being underhanded. Since the demon venerable dares to show his face, it means he's finally grown a brain after the last time he suffered at my hands." Yun Fuyao looked at me. "Martial uncle, are you going to the desolate border?" I nodded. "Since I came from there, it's only right that I go back to take a look." She gripped her sword. "I am going with you." I was about to refuse when she spoke again in a cool tone. "I am a golden core sword cultivator and the saintess of the Lingxiao sect. The desolate border needs me." I thought about it. "Fair enough." She seemed surprised that I agreed so quickly. I added, "You'll be in charge of the fighting, and I'll be in charge of the dirty tricks." 3 days later, the Lingxiao sect led its disciples to the desolate border. Yun Fuyao's name shook the battlefield after she split the demon vanguard with a single stroke of her sword. As for me, I finally saw the long-lost demon venerable. He stood atop dark clouds, his stature towering and his demonic aura surging toward the heavens. The moment he saw me, his expression changed instantly. I waved at him enthusiastically. "Long time no see, Wang Tizhi's dad." A ripple of commotion went through the demon army. The demon venerable roared, "Xia Wujiao." I sighed with feigned emotion. "Years have passed, and your temper is still as foul as ever. Your son's household registration is still with me, want to pay for a renewal?" The demon venerable was so enraged that his demonic energy billowed violently. The Black-Bone Demon Lord asked coldly, "Is this the formation master you were talking about?" The demon venerable gritted his teeth. "That's him." Black-Bone Demon Lord sneered. "A mere human junior, what is there to fear?" My eyes lit up. I loved old fogies like this who hadn't seen the world. The demon army pressed upon the border once more. Black-Bone Demon Lord acted personally, his demonic bones transforming into a 1,000-foot giant palm that slammed down toward Frontier City. Yun Fuyao drew her sword and soared upward. The sword light flashed like snow, slicing off a corner of the giant palm. But Black-Bone Demon Lord was an old monster from 1,000 years ago. After all, his strength was terrifying. Yun Fuyao was forced back several steps, blood seeping from the corner of her lips. The smile on my face faded. Seeing this, the demon sovereign laughed. "Xia Wujiao, what schemes do you have left today?" I looked at him. "I have one." The demon sovereign's expression shifted. I raised my hand. Outside Frontier City, 3,000 formation flags lit up simultaneously. A massive formation diagram emerged beneath the feet of the demons. Black-Bone Demon Lord sneered. Do you think the same trick will work on me? I shook my head. Of course not. That's why this time, it isn't for you. Black-Bone Demon Lord froze. In the next moment, a faint light shimmered from every cultivator within Frontier City. The 3,000 formation flags were not targeting the demons. They were targeting the human cultivators. They had guarded the frontier for years and slain countless demons. They possessed immense merit. Normally formless and invisible, this merit was now drawn out by the formation, converging into a golden river. When demonic energy met merit, it was like snow meeting the scorching sun. The Black-Bone Demon Lord's expression changed drastically. An array of merit? You can actually channel merit into an array? I said coldly, so many have died in the borderlands, it is time the heavenly Tao took notice. A golden river surged toward the heavens. Chains of merit bound the Black-Bone Demon Lord, his demonic bones shattering inch by inch. The demon sovereign tried to intervene but was cut off by Yun Fuyao's sword. She hovered in midair, her white robe stained with blood, but her sword intent was brighter than ever before. I looked at her and suddenly smiled. This child has finally grown into someone truly formidable. The Black-Bone Demon Lord roared and struggled. I raised my hand and formed a seal. Oh, heroic spirits of the borderlands! Today, we collect our due. The wind rose. Throughout the entire borderland city, it was as if countless slumbering souls had opened their eyes. Golden light descended. The Black-Bone Demon Lord vanished into ash and smoke. The demon army fell into utter chaos. Seeing that the tide had turned, the demon sovereign immediately ordered a retreat. Of course, I couldn't let him leave so easily. I activated the megaphone array I had brought with me. My voice boomed across the entire battlefield. The demon sovereign is running away again. The demon sovereign and the 17 allied tribes are fleeing once more. The demon sovereign says the Black-Bone Demon Lord was a useless waste. The demon sovereign even says all you demon generals aren't fit to hold a candle to his son, Wang Taizhu. In the distance, the demon sovereign spat out a mouthful of blood. The retreating demon ranks instantly fell into disarray. The generals of the 17 tribes grew suspicious of one another, arguing even as they fled. Yun Fuyao landed beside me and steadied me by the arm. Martial uncle, are you all right? I waved my hand. I'm fine. I just borrowed too much merit, the heavenly Tao is probably keeping tabs. Yun Fuyao frowned. What are the consequences? I gave it some serious thought. Facing tribulations might be a bit more expensive in the future. Yun Fuyao didn't understand. I didn't feel like explaining, either, because I was indeed quite tired. I leaned against the city wall, gazing in the direction where the demons had retreated, suddenly feeling that the wind in the frontier was still just as strong as ever. It made one's eyes sting. Yun Fuyao stood beside me. After a long time, she whispered, "Martial uncle, thank you." I smiled. Thank me for what? She said, "Thank you for coming back." I tilted my head to look at her. Her eyes were very bright, brighter than the stars in the frontier night. I suddenly felt that the peaceful days the heavenly Tao owed me seemed to have been half repaid. The other half was likely with her. After the battle at the frontier, the demons retreated to the demon realm. The demon venerable sent a peace treaty for the 4th time. This time, he was willing to offer 200,000 demon crystals, return 12 spirit veins, and promise not to invade the frontier for 100 years. The additional condition remained the same: tell me to stay far away from the demon realm. Ideally, I should never go near it again for the rest of my life. The sect leader couldn't stop grinning after reading the treaty. I asked him, "Sect leader, does this count as a great service?" The sect leader nodded. "A great merit." I asked again, "Then can you give me a long vacation?" The sect leader fell silent. I immediately grew wary. What's with that look on your face? The sect leader looked at me with earnest concern. Wujio, Fuyao has now reached the nascent soul stage. According to the sect's rules, she can establish her own peak. I nodded. That's a good thing. The sect leader continued, she said she hasn't thought of a name for her peak yet. I said, let her take her time. The sect leader cleared his throat. She also said she wants to invite you over to be a guest elder. I was shocked. Teaching her wasn't enough? Now I have to work for her, too? The sect leader sighed. She said guest elder is just a title. I had just breathed a sigh of relief. The sect leader added, in reality, it's to be her Tao companion. I choked on my tea with earth-shaking violence. The sect leader looked at me with a beaming smile. Are you willing? I wanted to say I wasn't. After all, I have always been a man who loves his freedom. But Yun Fuyao was standing outside the hall, holding 2 sticks of candied haws. One was hawthorn. One was spirit plum. She looked at me, her expression as cold and aloof as ever. But the tips of her ears were visibly red. I suddenly remembered many years ago, the first time she came to hear my lecture. She sat miles away from me, as if I were a monster to be feared. Later, she became willing to sit a little closer. Even later, she would eat candied haws with me. She would smile at me after enduring her tribulations. She would stand by my side on the battlefields of the frontier. I sighed. The sect leader asked, reluctant? I said, not exactly. Sect leader, then what is it? I was very serious. I was thinking, if we get married, shouldn't the Qinglan sect send a wedding gift? 3 months later, Yun Fuyao and I became Tao companions. All the righteous sects sent congratulatory gifts. The Qinglan sect sent the most. Perhaps they were afraid I would be unhappy. The demon lord also sent a gift. An entire chest of demon crystals, plus a letter. The letter contained only 8 characters, a harmonious union for a century, stay away from the demon realm. Yun Fuyao laughed for a long time after reading it. I thought the demon lord was still being too polite. After all, we were old acquaintances. 300 years later, before Yun Fuyao and I ascended, a new genius emerged in the Lingxiao sect. He was a young disciple we had taken in, named Xie Xinghui. His talent was extraordinary, and his comprehension was immense. The only problem was that he was a bit too scheming. When he was 10, he didn't want to attend sword class, so he hid the personal swords of the 3 sword masters in each other's respective dwellings. The 3 sword masters suspected one another and argued for 3 full days. He skipped 3 days of sword class because of it. Yun Fuyao was so incensed that she punished him by making him stand in a horse stance at the mountain gate. As I passed by, I saw my young disciple wearing an innocent expression, bearing quite a bit of my own charm from back in the day. Yun Fuyao gave me a cold look. You're still laughing? I immediately straightened my face. I'm not laughing. She pointed at Xie Xinghui. Yesterday, he was selling rubbings of my sword intent to the outer sect disciples. I was shocked. He already knows how to replicate sword intent? Yun Fuyao, is that the point? I thought about it. How much did he sell them for? Yun Fuyao closed her eyes. 500 high-grade spirit stones. I sucked in a breath of cold air. This kid has a future. Yun Fuyao drew her sword. I scrambled back. Madam, calm your anger. I meant to say he definitely deserves to be punished. Xie Xinghui stood before the mountain gate, looking at me pitifully. Master, I was wrong. I asked, what did you do wrong? He lowered his head. I shouldn't have sold them for only 500. Yun Fuyao's sword chi instantly swept across half the mountain gate. I grabbed Xie Xinghui and bolted. As I ran, I said with a pained expression, you foolish child, how could you tell the truth right in front of your master's wife? Xie Xinghui had a sudden epiphany. This disciple has learned his lesson. Behind us, sword light as white as snow chased the two of us all over the mountain. The disciples of the Lingxiao sect stood in the distance, watching the spectacle. The sect was already on its third sect leader. The new sect leader watched the scene and let out a long sigh. Ancestors above, what sins has our Lingxiao sect committed? I turned back and shouted to him. Sect leader, you shouldn't say that. This is called a legacy. Yun Fuyo sneered. It is indeed a legacy. She continued, a wicked one. I looked at Xie Xinghui. Xie Xinghui looked at me. The two of us sighed at the same time.